In 1879, a unique event in the history of the Texas Rangers occurred not far from the New Mexico border. A ranger was killed while chasing horse thieves, and his body was left to rot in the hot summer sun. The corporal in charge of the Rangers was subsequently fired for cowardice, and 5 other Rangers quit after being fined for cowardly behavior. To this day, the Texas Rangers and Texas historians have covered up this entire problem. Now, about 10 years later, in the newly electrified city of San Angelo, Texas, a hearing takes place to discover what happened when Ranger W.B. Anglin was shot to death.
Judge Sutton, Texas Rangers have repeatedly blamed Chief Black Horse of the Comanche tribe of Indians for what they call the Comanches' last raid, which resulted in the death of Ranger Anglin. I now call on former Lieutenant C.R. Ward to comment. Good morning, Lieutenant Ward. You were stationed at Fort Sill before being assigned to Fort Concho. We have exchanged letters, and I understand that you have a good record of events pertaining.
Yes, sir. Most of my military days I have time to record events in my diaries, and I understand you are most interested in the month of June 1879.
Thank you, Lieutenant Ward. While a soldier must obey orders officially, he may personally disagree with policy behind the orders. Personally, did you disapprove of the government's leniency towards reservation Indians?
I had no opinion, sir.
From Fort Concho, you and your troops regularly patrolled vast areas of the western part of Texas. How would you assay the Indian threat in that period of time?
Comanches were confined to Fort Sill, Oklahoma. At Fort Sill, I was instrumental in compiling the Comanche dictionary. Possibly I knew the Indians as well as anyone, and I believe they were dispirited and not threatening. Bands of Apaches were no longer raiding in this region of western Texas, although 2 or 3 renegades might have come in.
From your lengthy experience and knowledge of Comanches at Fort Sill, could you determine whether killers of Private Anglin were Comanches?
In that time, we never saw any Indians nor traces of them. I am told that the Rangers found saddles and blankets marked Fort Sill Reservation, but they burned them. My answer is no. I could not determine who killed Ranger Anglin.
Lieutenant Ward, June Peak says that Chief Black Horse was in charge of the Indians that killed Private Anglin. Did you know Black Horse at Fort Sill? Whether or not you personally knew him, did you have any personal opinion of him?
I knew him. He was a very colorful character, sir. He was exiled or jailed in Florida for a time.
I believe this map exhibit number 3. Lieutenant Ward, your men and Ranger Bruton and Patty found the body of Anglin and buried him where he fell. Please tell me whether the location of the incident of Ranger Anglin is correct.
Yes, everything on this map looks correct. Anglin was somewhat near a small lake of bad water.
Thank you. The Comanches were noted for taking scalps and mutilating bodies. What was the condition of the body of Private Anglin? Judge, I submit photographs of Lieutenant Ward's report to the post adjutant at Fort Concho.
I'm sorry to say that the body of Anglin had broiled in the hot summer sun for many hours, and that it was vultures that showed us the way to him. The body was in no condition to examine, and it was a terrible job to get him buried.
Judge, I would like to register this photograph as Exhibit 4. By coincidence, I was on 4 July last year at the probable site of the killing. I mean by coincidence that it was 4 July 1879 when Anglin's burial took place. Our day was exceptionally hot. Friends and I could not find the grave, although the stone in the photograph seemed in an odd location, such as a marker of some sort. Lieutenant Ward, does this photograph remind you of the location, the stone?
The photograph is a portrayal of the area. I was not close enough to the grave to remember anything, nor do I know anything about a mark or stone being carried to the grave. I think I would have remembered that.
Did you know or know of Private Anglin? He has been described as being brave and known for his kindness, good humor, unceasing devotion to duty. In your opinion, was he particularly well-liked or disliked by his fellow Texas Rangers?
I would recognize Anglin from seeing him around San Angelo and maybe at chapel once or twice. I have no opinion about his relations with the men in his unit.
How were relations between Texas Rangers and the U.S. Army? Did you get along well?
Especially with the Texas Rangers of the West Texas Department, the relations could not have been worse. The Rangers frontier battalions believed that all Indians, especially Comanches, should be killed. Fort Sill was seen as a government shield protecting Comanches. The Army was considered a northern institution, and most Rangers were Southerners, many Confederates. Finally, all Fort Concho soldiers were blacks, except for us officers, and the Rangers hated cooperating with the Negro.
After finding Anglin, why did you not pursue the raiders?
Such indications of a trail were that the raiders were heading west towards New Mexico or maybe to Old Mexico. I then began to think that a Comanche would have been more likely to go north to Fort Sill. Anyhow, with 2 days advance start, the culprits would not be found.
Judge Sutton, I will return to the subject of the identity of the culprits in my summary. Lieutenant Ward, reports say that on June 29, the Rangers surprised the Indians a few miles from Holland's Ranch. Do you believe this to be true? Did Rangers fire on the Indians when either party might have been seeking parley? In other words, was it in the interest of either party, Rangers or thieves, to avoid a disinterested inquiry?
I have no knowledge of this, but it would be odd for a group of mounted Rangers to be able to surprise wary Comanches.
Much obliged, Lieutenant. That will be all. Have a good journey back to Brownwood.